Welcome. Welcome. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Welcome. Welcome to the Stream of Truth. I'm Dr. Tassel Faith Shamebrook.
And I'm Sean Kelly.
And today we are wrapping up our powerful three-part series of the Spiritual Threesome. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into feeling our feelings and changing our lives. And earlier we did a episode on Know You Are Enough, as well as an episode on Follow Your Guidance. And together, these three practices we feel are really, really powerful for our personal growth and our spiritual ascension.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say that prior to meeting Tassel, this hadn't occurred to me. This whole idea hadn't really occurred to me. And she had this little puzzle piece that I guess she sort of gave to me, which was feel your feelings. And I think prior to that, I didn't get that. I didn't get that part. So, um, yeah, so it's been very, I think, transformative for me as well. So I would call her the expert in this area, and I'll do my best to help.
And I'm just curious, prior to more fully feeling your feelings, what would you do with your feelings?
Uh, Tuck them away, like any good American. No,
American
Canadian.
male.
I'm a Canadian, but
Right, Canadian, that's right.
whatever. We're pretty similar.
North American male.
Yeah, like any typical masculine.
Yeah,
I
tuck them away.
I get a jar, and I get all that feeling, and I just shove it in the jar, and
Put it under your bed.
I tighten it, and I airlock it with those clips, and then I put it on a shelf, and that way
Yeah.
I always have it.
Right, it's
So
always with you.
It's always with me, and I can check on it
It's
later.
kind of bothering you in a way, but
Yeah.
not opening it up. Yeah. Yeah, it's so for me too, I didn't know about feeling my feelings either for most of my life. And I've said this before, but I have a PhD in psychotherapy, and I went through over 7 years of clinical training, and we never discussed helping our clients feel their feelings.
Yeah.
It was never a thing.
I don't think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I don't think that society so like the default orientation of the mind is to avoid things that make us uncomfortable, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Yes.
of course the default sort of setting and teaching and everything is all about comfort. Um
Yes.
and avoiding those things and that type
Yes.
of thing, or essentially not really even discussing any of it at all, because people just don't know what to do about it. So
Yeah. And I think that a lot of us, myself included, don't understand the value of feeling our feelings. So
I certainly
maybe that would
didn't.
be a good thing to touch on first.
Sure.
Why do we want to go into uncomfortable feelings? What is the worth of that?
Yeah.
And from an energetic perspective, we're all carrying different energies in our field. And so when we have a feeling that we haven't honored, that we haven't been present with, that we haven't really felt, it just remains in our field. It's just hanging around.
Yeah.
And then what happens is we will continue to attract in situations that are a match to that energy, not as punishment, but because the energy wants to clear, it wants to be felt, and the insight wants to be gained for our soul's expansion. So when we don't feel our feelings, first of all, it feels uncomfortable because we can kind of still feel them. They're still there.
Yeah.
And they're often, sometimes if we like blow up, quote unquote, that's, often a sign that there's just stuff there that's not being felt. So we kind of can feel that they're there, and it can feel really uncomfortable. And then we're going to just continue to attract in situations that may not be what we really prefer.
Yeah.
So it's almost just, I see it as hygiene. It's emotional hygiene, to feel our feelings, honor them, move them through, and we're sort of fresh and clean afterwards.
Yeah, and I think when we don't feel our feelings, it's sort of akin to us like being handed a lesson plan or like a bit of homework from our teacher, uh, and us going, I'll just put that in my. You know how we used to have those desks with the little cubbies inside of them? Did you have any of those?
Yes,
I don't know if they
yes,
still make those or not, but those were awesome. So like, we just shove it in the little cubby, and I'll get to it later. And so we end
yes,
up doing that with tons of stuff. We get accosted sort of with these little lessons, and then we just tuck
yes.
them in the cubby, and then later when we're starting to purify and try to cleanse and do shadow work and self healing, we like are digging through all of those papers basically and doing the work
Yes,
finally.
that's such a great analogy. And you're right. I think maybe for a lot of us, when we start to awaken and then we might go into sort of a dark night of the soul, it's partly because we've spent so many years not feeling.
Yeah.
And then when we start to awaken and we're more connected, the feelings are arising more profoundly, and we kind of have a backlog
Right.
of of I think that's absolutely what I experienced. I don't think I felt I don't I think I was almost completely cut off from my feelings for the majority of my life. And when I went into my dark night of the soul, I just, oh, there was a lot to clean up there.
Yeah, I think I was too. I think I developed certain little tactics, I think, to just avoid them.
Yes.
Uh, and also, I remember like very distinctly growing up thinking women are the ones who feel, men
Yes.
are meant to be strong. So
Yes.
that's what I grew up seeing. Like that's and it wasn't so much like my parents. Like my mom wasn't very emotional growing up,
Mhm. Mhm.
or like she didn't do um some of those situations where like they're just so overcome with emotion that they're like upset and all that. I only saw her very very upset a couple of times. um and one was when her brother passed away when we were in Florida. So like those types of things, so I didn't see her as being very emotional, but the society showed me that women are meant to be fragile and emotional, and there's a sort of weakness to that, and
Yes.
then men are meant to be strong and stoic.
Yes.
um and that's all nonsense, of course, but
I'm just thinking of movie scenes, uh, particularly maybe when I was a kid. If something bad happened and there was a man and a woman, the woman might be weeping and the man is
yeah.
comforting her.
Oh,
And
save me, Joseph.
yeah,
Yes,
but he's
something.
not showing any emotion. So
Yeah.
so many invitations for men in particular to not experience their emotions. And you're so right that it seems like the programming is that there's something weak about really feeling our feelings or crying, even that
Yeah.
crying is something shameful. I mean, so many times when people cry, they'll apologize, right? I do it all the time.
Hmm. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying,
And even
as if we're doing something wrong.
even me, I won't generally cry in front of people. Even you,
Yes.
I often don't. um
I know. And I've asked, I think I've said, like, it would be amazing if you ever felt comfortable to, like, I'd like to share that experience with you. And
I need to be
um
strong like bull. No, no, no. I
yes.
think, but I think it is still like a remnant of that feeling like it's not okay for me to be upset that way.
Yes. It's
Um,
not masculine.
so I know that that's not the case, but I still have like sort of instinctual, automatic type of responses when I feel that coming on, and I'm not in private.
Yes.
And I just sort
Yes.
of do what I used to do and just be like, I'm going to look at that one a little later. Let's get back
Yes.
to whatever's going on. And so that way I can remain at peace.
Yep.
And I've gotten actually like really good at it. And I also made sure that I know how to go back and get it and sort of look at it when it's the right time. So it works for me now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but but you know, a lot of times we miss some of the nuances of the thing that's going on if we don't look at it right away. So it
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
it's I think it's best to allow it to flow freely in the moment than it is to do what I do, which is assess it later when I feel I have space to do it. So
Yes.
I think
And
it's different for everybody.
it's almost like in the way our society is set up, if you are having an emotional moment, it often, if you're at work or something, we often feel, oh, it's not appropriate for me to just have my feeling and maybe a bit of a cry right now. I'll have to save it for later. Our society is not structured for our just flow of emotion to happen. It's like,
Yes.
no, no, you need to be in your rational mind and you need to like
And this
work.
that what you just said is the perfect example of why every human is an empathic, intuitive being. The reason they don't like it, or the reason society doesn't like it, is because it makes us uncomfortable that the other person's hurting. We don't know what to
Yeah.
do. We want to try and fix it. We know that we can't. It's their feelings. So we're like, can you just not do this around me? Right?
Yeah.
Because
Right. Right.
it bugs us because we're empathic and we're feeling that discomfort
Well,
with
and
them
we
in some ways.
and if we're not totally comfortable with feeling our feelings ourselves and someone else is doing it, then it's, it can feel super uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, and so that's why it's not appropriate really to break down crying in the middle of a meeting at the office. That's not appropriate.
yeah, that is considered not appropriate.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
according to this situation you're in
The
and the people that are
collective
there,
society
they're
mind.
not.
Yeah.
It's not going to be appropriate to them.
Yeah.
So
And yeah. And I just think it'd be really interesting if we did shift into a society where, like maybe it's normal to like take a coffee break or it's normal to have a smoke or go get a snack. Eating is very normalized all the time, right? You can
I
eat
do
whenever you
see
want.
we're gonna go have feel your feelings moments like breaks to just center. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that'll happen. Yeah,
yeah, like that would be amazing because all those other things are a way just to distract and numb us from the internal emotions that
yeah.
really just want to be felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
instead of going to take a little coffee break right now, I'm going to just go feel my feelings and have a little bit of a cry in the
Yep.
bathroom or
And
whatever.
I also think that some of the reason that we're faced with those challenges of being in places where it's just not appropriate for us to show the emotion, it's
Yeah.
like objectively speaking, it's not going to go well. I mean, you could do it, of course, but it's not going to go
Because
well.
of the response from other people. Yeah.
Generally, yeah, yeah. Like if you're in
Yeah.
a meeting or you're sitting around Sunday night dinner with all of your family and some of your extended family, and
Yes.
then you just break down crying about stuff like
Yes.
people are going to be perturbed, right? So I think some of the reason that we put ourselves into those situations, because remember that we're creating our reality and we're creating our lessons for ourselves. I
Yes.
think part of the reason that we put ourselves into that is there's a certain amount of control. I shouldn't use the word control, but understanding around how these energies flow and the various techniques to just
Balance.
direct them a little
Yes.
bit
Yes.
and manage them. So I don't want to say control because to control your emotions is a different thing. It's what you're trying, I think, to learn to do is to sit balanced while your emotion is coming and feel it all in the middle of the meeting
Yeah.
without any outward reactivity. I do think that that's unless the outward unless the reaction is somehow like you have to get something off your chest, or things like that. But if, like, I don't know, if you're in a meeting and somebody's like, you have this memory or start to think of something horrible that happened and that makes you really sad, it doesn't really have anything to do with the meeting, it's not really a good time to talk about it, right? So part of what I think we're learning to do is to be able to sit in it, and express it if we feel we need to. But primarily, I think we're learning how to sit in it and be okay with sitting in it without breaking apart.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this becomes so helpful, particularly in relationship, with, say, a significant other, your partner, your husband, your wife, when there's a conflict and each one of you is having some tricky, painful emotions possibly come up.
Right.
This can sometimes be just a nuclear explosion in the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
because of how raw and delicate sometimes that situation can be. And I've been noticing between you and me that I think we're getting a bit more masterful with that, about the emotions are coming up, but still holding space for the other person and not being reactive.
Yeah.
Like being this vessel within that is feeling everything and isn't suppressing it, but is also to remaining calm at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wanted to say as well, Joe had a great question. This is a really cool, I had never heard of this. I'm wondering if you have. He said, expressing feelings are important in a healthy way, but what are your thoughts of cry rooms in 2016 when Trump was elected? Healthy or over the top? Politics aside, of course. So it's not about Trump or anything. He's just wondering about cry rooms. So apparently you guys have cry rooms, or had cry rooms?
I've never heard of that. That is fascinating.
I've never heard of that either.
Are we saying that there were rooms people could go to cry because they were upset that Trump was elected?
That is what it sounds like to me.
Wow.
I don't know if it's about Trump being elected or not.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it could be. I mean, some people, I know people that were very, like, distraught over that.
Yeah,
Very
that
distraught.
was a thing. Yes.
But I think what it is a place where people go to cry. I don't think
I love that. I think that's amazing. I am so on board with cry rooms.
I think that there's,
instead of smoking rooms, or in addition to smoking rooms.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with, I'm not saying anything about smoking.
Right. Actually, I had a smoking room in the airport that I was really excited to go into, because it's like a nice little cafe thing. All I had to do was buy a Red Bull. Because I had like alcohol and Red Bulls. So anyways, so I bought a Red Bull and I was able to just chill in this like totally comfortable little lounge with, it looked like I was in somebody's kitchen. But anyway.
I absolutely love the idea of a crying room. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, it was specifically about him being elected.
Okay.
It was cry rooms about a specific thing. See, that I think is a little wacky. But I think it's nice that people had a place to cry.
Well, it seems like in that instance, there was some societal acceptance about people having very strong emotional reactions to Trump being elected. And it would be wonderful if we could just extend that acceptance to anything anyone might be feeling at any time.
I have an inkling that whole thing was just meant to put a little media parade.
Yeah.
Look how upset the society is. We had to make cry rooms.
Right.
That's sort of what I think was happening.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having a place.
I like the idea.
Now, I also, that's a feeding ground for what I would call negative entities as well, though. So, like, there will be people that literally go there to observe suffering.
Oh,
and relish in it. Not only people, but entities.
Maybe you can't be admitted unless you're crying as well. I don't know. But I think what's sort of interesting,
I think it depends,
is we're making it separate, right? Like you have to go somewhere to cry. It's not really appropriate to just do it in a more natural way.
Yeah.
But, so to me, it's not ideal, but I do like the idea of just people having a place to
Yeah, I
cry.
think if it's done well,
Yeah.
uh, and I think almost you'd need almost a buddy system, like
Uh
somebody in
huh.
almost a therapist type role to help the other person. If it's just a bunch of people going into a room to cry, like that energy is going to be bananas in there. Um, I don't know.
Possibly.
I don't know if like I actually think that it would be difficult to even tune into your own feelings because people you'd be picking up all this stuff. Um,
Well, yeah, maybe there'd be like cubbies,
yeah.
like little
I think the idea is cool. I think in
privacy.
this instance, it was mostly a political nothingness. It was mostly
Yeah.
just smoke and mirrors. Maybe people were that upset, and then then the media was like, "Oh, this is what we can do." Um,
Yeah.
I do think the idea is cool, but no, I
I
don't
do.
think creating cry rooms for a particular sad thing is necessarily healthy. I think
I think more acceptance and honoring of crying
yes,
just across the boards is the ideal path.
yes,
And for us to just be comfortable with our own natural flow of crying at times as men and women, and for us to be comfortable with others in their natural flow of crying at times,
right,
and
right.
not just crying but all the emotions.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
So
Yeah,
I
it's not just
also want
crying.
to include like anger in that.
Yeah, anger is a big one
That
actually because not
uh,
feeling anger is what causes cancer.
yes, and almost every violent act is sort of this built up
Yeah,
that type
yeah,
of rage and anger. And
hmm
I think there's some suppression around men feeling anger, and then even maybe more so with women. Like just as men aren't supposed to cry, I feel I was socialized that I'm not allowed to feel angry. Like a good girl doesn't feel angry.
yeah.
Um,
I think what ends up
there's
happening,
shame around anger.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So there's anger is a big one. Anger is a really big one. I could talk about that for a long time. It's a really
Yeah.
important one because anger towards another or towards experience is truly just anger to the self, which then is manifest in
Mhm.
the body as disease. So,
Yes.
uh, depending on where the anger sits and in the chakras and what
Yes.
meridians it ends up resting in, that's where the
Yes.
cellular breakdown begins to happen and then mutation
Yep.
as the anger is manifest into the physical. And
Yep.
it's the heart that will do that. Um, and it's appropriate because beings need to learn how to deal with anger, and they either need to learn to control it, which is the negative path of service to self, or they
Hmm.
need to learn how to be open to it and accepting of it when it
Yes.
shows itself, which would be the
Yeah.
positive path. So
So we have so usually so much judgment around our more quote unquote negative emotions. If they're anger, jealousy, hatred, uh, these are tend to be quite uncomfortable for us to feel,
yeah,
and we judge it. Oh, if I'm feeling this, there's something wrong with me.
yeah,
I better suppress it. I'm not going to tell anyone about it. I don't want to feel it. And so I think a lot of this path is, again, this theme that we talk about a lot is self trust, that whatever is arising in me, it's perfect. It's okay. I can trust it. And if something is happening internally in me, I can go with the flow.
yeah.
I can feel it.
And at the end of that, this is the most important. Excuse me, I got like the hiccups. The most important part, I think, is just realizing that it's through doing these things that are uncomfortable at first, you get more and more used to it, more and more like your default is to go, oh, a feeling, and check it out.
Yes, you get can get excited.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, like today I woke up miserable. and we had this conversation, and literally as I'm talking about how frustrated and grumpy I am, I like kick a fan over by accident, right? Like just I'm just flustered and blah, blah. So I'm literally bringing frustration into my environment and into my reality. I'm starting to manifest it physically because I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
Um, if I were to probably have just sat down
And felt it.
and just felt it, I didn't
Yes.
feel I had time to do that because I was getting ready
Right.
to
Yes.
meet with you, etc. So
Yeah.
had I just sat down and felt that, um,
Yes.
it likely would have passed, and that's what ended up happening when I sat with the pyramids. There is I went into it and felt it and let it out, and so now I feel a
Yeah.
lot better. Um,
Oh, that's
but
great. And
that's
that sorry.
oh sorry that's all I was gonna say is that it's feeling it and doing this difficult part that resolves it, and so
Yes.
if we
So
are scared to go into it, we're not gonna resolve it. So
exactly. So if we find ourselves sort of in a complaining orientation or like stuck feeling frustrated, we're just most likely not feeling something that's a bit uncomfortable. And
yeah,
if we just go, it's like there's a thorn in your foot and it's causing you some discomfort. If we just go in, feel it,
exactly,
take out the thorn, it's going to feel better. And I'd like to give another example of
sure.
what we're talking about.
Wait, but before you do that,
Yeah.
actually, no. You do your example. Then after, if you can remind me if I forget, Dustin. There's a somebody watching named Dustin made a comment about narcissism and growing up in a narcissistic type of environment.
Okay.
I'd like to touch on what he had said
Okay. I'm making a note.
after that. Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
let's hear
So
your example.
I'm going to give an example of, and I've talked about this a bit before, during my very acrimonious, difficult divorce custody situation with my former husband. Um, a lot went down for both of us. I did things that were very difficult for him. He did things that were very difficult for me. We both were playing into it. But afterwards, I had so many super uncomfortable feelings towards him, as I'm sure he did towards me as well. And I, for a while, I didn't really go super deep into them. I just tried to avoid him. I would have him pick up the kids for when he was having the kids at their school. I didn't want him coming to my house at all, even just parking in the driveway. And I had sort of fantasies about never having to see him again. I was avoiding him
Hmm.
because I was so uncomfortable with my feelings towards him.
And probably when you saw him or had to be around him, all those feelings would come up. So the avoidance was to stay away from that, right? I'm imagining.
Yes. And I wasn't solving the problem at all because he's the dad of my kids. I'm going to see him the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
But I was so uncomfortable with the feelings, I didn't know what to do. So over time, somehow I gave myself permission to feel everything towards him. I'm talking hatred towards him. I'm talking rage towards him. I'm talking, wishing one of us wasn't on the planet, like super uncomfortable feelings that I'm not proud to say I held, but I did. And it was absolutely through giving myself the permission and the space of feeling all that really uncomfortable stuff around him that it moved through me.
Hmm.
It cleared. I sat with it, I honored it, and it eventually moved through me. And that is a huge reason why at this point in time we have a fantastic, very loving relationship, which I still find miraculous because it was a really, really
Yeah,
difficult
I'll
relationship.
share that you guys are so close that I get jealous. Like, even though I know there's nothing to be jealous, I like some of my old instincts or something kick in.
Yes.
It's you guys are very close and it's very harmonious. You seem like great friends, very close friends is really what it
Yes.
seems like to me.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And
and
we never, I don't think could have, and I think he must have done work on, I've never really asked him. I should, like, did you feel all your feelings of maybe
I
hating
have a
me?
theory. I have a theory that if one person does it, um, that one person can heal the wounding and so it becomes less intense for the other person. That's
That is my sense too. And
yeah.
that
I
was something that we were
I
going
don't
to
think it
say.
goes away necessarily, but if they don't look at
Yeah.
it themselves, but I think the intensity of it dies down. Like it's not
That
as
is
charged because there's less.
complete.
You're not
Yes.
both contributing to this pain. One person's
Yes.
dropped off, so the other one it starts to just starve.
That's what I think happened.
Yeah, I
I
think so.
tend to be more of the feeler than maybe he is. So I think that is what happened is
I think
I
so.
felt so much of it that kind of cleared the relationship energy.
Yeah.
And I've done that with a lot of people in my family
Hmm.
and not really talking to them and not really them necessarily reaching out to me, but I felt everything around the relationship and the relationship shifted.
And I would like
It
to
became much more loving.
I would like to share that this is what primarily the white magician does with elevating collective consciousness. Um,
Ah,
they as so you're by doing that and observing what you observed, you're healing others, right? So
yes, yes,
uh, you focus on the energy on yourself and all that stuff. But as you're doing that, you're essentially offering a clear conduit to the other to receive
yes,
healing through you because they're so
yes,
focused in these situations in your mind.
yes. Yep.
Um, and depending on their sort of higher selves orientation, as to what's appropriate for them to experience, they'll either accept the healing or they won't. But
Yes.
so it depends. You can't know for sure that you will adjust the other person or that they will be healed through it. Um, but it does seem to be quite effective. I've noticed the same thing in my relationships as well, and literally I don't have to talk to them at all. So
It literally feels like magic.
yeah,
That's how I
that's
experience
what
it.
it is. I think it's
It's
healing. Yeah,
it's magical. Yeah, I've had three very close people in my family that we had very difficult relationships, and I've felt pretty much everything around them. And all three of those relationships are peaceful and harmonious now.
yeah, yeah.
It really feels magical.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some interesting chat going on.
Yeah. Do you want to
Uh, yeah, I
talk
want to
about the
jump
narcissist?
into it. I want to say hello to Jamie as well. She said hi and I missed it. So hello,
Hi.
Jamie. Hi, Dustin, and hi, Joe as well. And hi to everybody else who's watching either live or from a later time, a later
Yes.
another moment or another version of the now. Somebody says
Ooh,
that.
I like that.
Somebody says that. I don't know who it is. I stole it. Um, uh, but so Dustin was said, I've been having issues with accepting my feelings so that I could feel them. It seems like I dealt with narcissism my whole life. I wasn't entitled to feel my feelings when I was growing up. It also seemed that whether it was friends or family, they were allowed to treat me or speak to me how they wanted, but it was never okay the other way around. Um, yeah, that's more or less that's the experience that most people have once they start to realize they're not really feeling their feelings. Um, it becomes a little confusing because we didn't realize that we also weren't allowing others to express their feelings, most likely. We're all in a little bit of a narcissistic bubble for a while, and then we blossom out of it. A lot of us will still have open hearts and all that stuff. We're not narcissistic. Like that word, in and of itself, is sort of nonsense. I think there's a spectrum, and just people are oriented different ways. And a certain amount of self interest is healthy. So what's happening in those familial situations, from my experience or perspective, and what I've seen, is as I came out of that, I started to think the same thing, that people weren't accepting my feelings, but I wasn't accepting them either. And that's one of the things that I had to really look at and learn, is that I also was participating in this game of no feelings. I wasn't sharing my feelings; they weren't sharing theirs. Nobody really knew. The communication was surface level. Generally, people would have emotional flare ups and say and do things, but so would I. So that tends to be the case. As far as, and then when we reflect back on that, until we see that we also were playing that game with them willingly, like neither of them, none of them really knew what was going on as far as uh, emotional intelligence. They didn't have the tools, just as you didn't have the tools. they can't teach you the tools or be open with you with the tools because they don't know how to do it themselves. So you can able to sort of just relax a bit on like pointing at the various people that didn't seem to accept you, sort of realizing that you also weren't really accepting them, and even the pointing at them now is an indicator that that's still happening. Um, they didn't accept me. What really happened is you didn't accept yourself, and so they won't accept you until you accept yourself, anyways. Um, and so there's like sort of layers that you end up going through, and it sounds like you're at the place where you've started to understand that you need to feel your feelings. Um, but there's still resentment there around growing up in a place where it didn't seem okay, and you know that if you were able to feel your feelings it would have been smoother. So um it's easy to like cast blame and stuff like that on people. um and I guess what I'm trying to say is all of us have a narcissistic edge to us, and it comes out in different ways. um well, generally all of us, not specifically. I'm sure there are definitely anomalies that have zero self-interest at all. But even Jesus was concerned about dying. He knew that he was walking to his death, and he didn't want to do that because he wanted to protect himself. Um, but so basically, my point is that I guess try to step back from the pointing at who did what in the past, and just sort of know that now that you know that you need to feel your feelings, that's the most important thing. Now that you know and like are learning, whatever happened before is what happened. So you can just start to move on and try to relinquish everyone from the blame.
Yeah,
um
and I think
Everyone's confused.
what's interesting is when I think back to my family of origin, and I had that same experience, the people in my family were just so uncomfortable feeling their own feelings. So it's
Right.
like there's, I don't think there's malintent in these
Yeah.
situations. It's our parents, the people we grew up with. They were so programmed not to feel their feelings. They were super uncomfortable, didn't know what to do when their feelings would start to come up. So when they were interacting with us as children and our feelings were coming up, then their stuff is coming up and they don't know what to do. They don't
Right.
they don't have any of the tools.
Yeah.
Um, so we can kind of just a blanket of forgiveness towards all of us.
Yep.
And and
Exactly. Yeah.
as we practice more connection with our own emotions and feeling everything, that consciousness is also going to permeate to everyone around us. As
Yeah.
you become more emotionally intelligent and astute, you're going to notice it ripple out with everyone that you're connected to.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
But
we
it's
can we
so,
can
but
just
how, mhm.
we could just realize that we were all confused.
Yeah, we're all in the dark.
Yeah, we're all trying to
Um,
figure it out, and we
yes.
back then nobody had the tools, including you.
And people can't give you what they can't give themselves, what they
Yeah.
don't have to give. So
Exactly.
when we
Exactly.
look at our parents or other people who raised us, we'll see that what we think they didn't give us, they didn't have. They
Right.
just didn't have it.
And
It didn't exist.
and anybody who's outwardly attacking, and whether physical, emotional, whatever it is, all they're doing is saying, "Look how much I don't love myself." That's all
Yes.
they're saying.
Yes.
Look how much I don't love myself. I'm willing to say this to you because that's how I feel about myself. And so you can just sort of step back and be like, that's a shitty place to be, to think so
Yes.
low of yourself that you feel inclined to start to attack, right? um
And there's also this
you can have compassion.
I think misprogramming in our society that say our parents are like supposed to be always wiser than us
Or
or
know
always
everything.
work together or know everything. And my goodness, everyone is just a human on our own path. And often the children coming in, have different skill sets and gifts coming in,
Yeah.
and they're teaching their parents. So often the children can be the ones who are a bit of the way showers. So
Yeah,
gosh, and just yeah.
we see them, they're, a couple decades older than us. They know everything, they give us everything, they teach us how to speak,
Right.
they teach us
Right.
everything about the world. We just presume they know what's best, because why
And
wouldn't we?
really, in all these, in any relationship we have, there's a back and forth give and take of teach, learn, teach, learn. So
Exactly.
between child, parent, between student, teacher, in client, therapist, it is back and forth, teach, learn, teach, learn. So it's nice
Hmm.
to just let go of that hierarchy and thinking that people who took care of us, that they knew, they didn't, they
Yep.
we're all just learning.
And if you're able to maintain those relationships after awakening and becoming more in touch with your feelings and stuff, you'll usually start to notice like those people expanding, and like those
Yes,
people becoming
absolutely.
more, perhaps they may be beginning and awakening themselves, or what, who knows,
Yes.
but you start to notice just a more, maybe more
Awareness.
conscious awareness of things
Yes.
from
Yes.
people that in the past didn't seem to show that too much. um so
Just sort of this idea that we're all rising together. We're all
yeah,
moving forward together.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons that there's like so many older souls here now, like more than half of the population, is to ensure that all of these older souls that are starting to heal the woundings for others, like the way that we were talking about with you and, your ex-husband,
Yes.
uh, they'll end up doing that for all each other, as well as people that are not older souls, people that are going through third density the
Yes.
first time.
Yes.
So they'll, it basically makes for this just giant healing cluster that just sort of spreads over the earth, right? You could see it like
Yes.
that, like all these lights start to brighten and then just engulf the earth.
And um sort of even from a past life perspective, I know all lives are simultaneous, but just call it past lives.
Right.
When we can come in and with some maybe challenging relationships that we're having in this lifetime, there's a good chance that some of those might have been over many lifetimes, especially if it feels very intense.
Hmm.
And so if we're able to feel everything and arrive to a place of peace, we've really cleared all of that energy from many lifetimes, and we've given this gift of peace to both of us.
Hmm.
And it's just, I think it's just a wonderful way to utilize our time here in this incarnation to create peace with as many people as you can in your life.
And we're also healing the ancestral lines of the family.
Yes.
The family has uh, an ancestral consciousness that has wounds and also biases, or preferences and things like that.
Yes.
So one of the things that we do, and this becomes obvious as you just watch humans go along generation to generation, the generation after the next generation always improves upon the
Yes.
parenting, the everything gets improved generally,
Yep.
because the the wanderers come in these types of situations and will heal the ancestral lines and start to let
Absolutely.
go
Absolutely.
of the patterns that brought us to where we're at. And so that's why the sort of the younger you look at people, like the more awake they seem to be. They're less uh they're less chained by the systems.
Yes.
They're allowed more freedom, to be themselves without reprimand by society as much. And you can see that that's been expanding and expanding to acceptance, open acceptance, open acceptance. Um, and so part of what we do is sit with our family members and learn how to let go of some of the negative patterning, which will heal it for the ancestors. And so then your children, or you may influence your sister, and then her children, she may start to, be more expansive, or, whatever. That
Yes.
all
And just,
is a big thing. And it's
yeah,
all
I
from
love
feeling your feelings.
yes. I love everything you said. So what just to sort of summarize this part is that the feelings that may be coming up for each of us may have to do with our own personal, this lifetime. It may have to do with other lifetimes, and it could have to do with our ancestral energies that
Yep.
we can feel. And just an example of this is, I've talked to you about this before, that I think I've cleared a lot of it at this point, but sometimes I'll have this energy come up of just complete fear and panic about losing everything,
Yep.
losing everything, my kids, my house, all abundance, everything. And I have never had that experience in this lifetime. What I've seen is I have had that experience in other lifetimes, and that's an ancestral situation as well.
Right.
So the way I see it is, when I'm brave enough to go into that feeling and it's super duper uncomfortable, I don't like going into it at all. But when I do go into it, I'm clearing it on all those levels. And that some of us have come in because we might be a little more adept at going there. And so we're helping the ancestral line. We're clearing it in our past lifetimes as well. To me, it really feels like the most courageous, honorable work one can do emotionally. It's not easy, but it helps everything. It's just clearing all that energy in all those different ways.
Yeah. 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 That's how I feel about it too. So, is there anything else that we wanted to talk about with? It's funny, they were talking about vacuuming up negative entities that collect in this crying rooms, and like going through and being like a negative entity janitor, cleansing the cry rooms. That'd be funny.
There's a few more points I'd love to make. One is about like the law of attraction, and understanding that if you allow yourself to feel something, it's not that you're remaining in that energy and sending that energy out and you're going to attract something. Because I know I could get a little bit, well, if I feel this, am I then attracting this into my life in this law of attraction sort of way? So I just want to make the point that the energy already is in you. If you're feeling it, it's already there.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's already there. And then you could be attracting situations to match that. So when we feel it, we're honoring it, we're gaining the insight, and we're moving it through. And then we're going to attract in different situations. So not to be scared of feeling our feelings.
Totally.
In that way. And
yeah, you could even say that the feeling itself came to you from the law of attraction.
yes.
Right? Like, it came to you because you're holding the feeling already.
Exactly.
So
it's already there.
So in order to resolve it, you have to feel it.
Yeah, there is no other way to move that energy through than to feel it.
Yeah,
you got to be done.
Basically, yeah. You could do it in bite-sized chunks, or you can do it in a whole rip up the root. But yeah, you basically have to go through it.
And I also want to share that some of the biggest blessings that have ended up coming into my life have been through going into super uncomfortable feelings. I'll just give a quick example. I always wanted to get a PhD ever since I was very young. And because I was very disconnected from my feelings for most of my life, and sort of off track and listening to other people, and it just really not aligned. I was in my 40s and I still hadn't done my PhD. And I was with my ex-husband, who is a surgeon, and we were visiting some friends of his. And one of his friends was this really amazing woman who was also a doctor. And after we hung out with them, I had a lot of uncomfortable feelings. There were feelings of like jealousy, like, oh, she's a doctor. I always wanted to be a doctor. There were feelings of, is it too late? I'm already a certain age. Maybe I just have to give up on that dream. How would I even go about it? Because I'd studied certain things in college and they weren't really lined up for what I wanted to get my doctorate in. Just a hot mess of super uncomfortable feelings. And I went into them. I went into all those feelings. I felt them. And then on the other side of those feelings was this path, motivation, direction to go forward and get my PhD.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting my PhD. But I really don't think I would have gotten my PhD had I not gone into that den of uncomfortable feelings. And I just see that over and over again in my life. When I go to those places, there's always a treasure.
Yep.
There's always a treasure on the other side of very uncomfortable feelings.
And sometimes the treasure is just that the uncomfortable feelings will pass. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like this morning with my grumpy, irritated feeling, I don't even know what it was. I just woke up that way. Just sitting in it a bit, it was able to pass. So then, I didn't have any major insight around it or anything. Like, it wasn't a huge thing. It was just weird grumpiness. But just sitting in it and going, yeah, I'm grumpy, instead of like being pissed off at myself for being grumpy, which is what I was initially, right? I was just annoyed at myself. I had stuff to do and I don't feel like doing it because I feel pissed off.
Yes.
Right. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And anyway.
Well, you make such a great point that often what tends to happen if we're having an uncomfortable feeling that we're judging, you're feeling grumpy, then we also feel bad, guilty, shameful about the feeling. So then we're dealing with a bunch of different uncomfortable energies and we're still not getting to the root of just feeling the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So just a couple last points is that, again, so much of this is about trusting whatever we're experiencing internally and not avoiding it and not judging it and not distracting ourselves from it. But, okay, this is happening right now for me. I'm going to honor it. I love the word honor. It's one of my favorite words. I use it all the time, but honoring our internal experience, whatever it is, and flowing with it.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah. There's just a lot of programming that it's not okay.
We talk about this stuff constantly. That's what we talk about. Even when we're alone, we talk about this stuff. We still forget time to time, or from time to time, to, in the moment, just go into the feelings, right? Or at least I do.
Yeah. Even like this week, you had been here for 2 weeks and you left, and I missed you a lot. And I was really beating myself up for my feelings. I'd say to you, like, something wrong with me. I miss you so much. And like, just not honoring whatever my feelings are. I wasn't honoring them.
Right. Yeah. And I so often don't honor my feelings I used to. I'm doing a lot better now, but I used to just, basically I would just sort of point at my feeling and just be like, that's nonsense. And then just go on my day. And that worked for a while. But what I ended up realizing is that these things were still there.
Yes.
So I didn't really realize that I thought I was, I think there is a stage that you get to that you can still visit with those feelings anytime you want, is what I've started to notice, is like you can still go to those places in your imagination and experience the negative feeling again if you want to. You just have to see it the way you saw it at that time. And once you do that, it'll feel bad again. So I don't think the feeling ever goes away. I think it stays in our energy and consciousness. I don't think it leaves. What I think happens is it becomes purified and non-polarized.
Non-charged.
Yeah, it's not charged anymore because the charge of that feeling, that experience, has been released. So the experience is still there. The feeling applied to it has sort of been shifted and changed so that it's not so, either it could even be a positively charged experience now, right? Where we have gratitude.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
we're either trying to get it to a neutral or gratitude, I think. Neutral is good, gratitude's better, but um I think that the feeling's still there because I know that I can still go to any of these old things that bothered me and see them in a certain way, and I'll get
Hmm.
upset about them, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I have to try to do that. So it doesn't just come in naturally anymore because it's been healed. But the experience is still there. So and we've talked about this before, but I call this sort of like alchemy, time travel. We sort of are
Yeah.
time traveling in
Yeah.
many ways, and
Yeah.
transmuting the energies of what occurred in the experience and what we projected upon the experience through our identification with what was going on.
Yeah.
Um, and so when we clean that, then we could still go to the feelings. So um, like no aspect of any of it gets lost or anything like that. I think some
I would
people
say
have weird fears about that.
there's a transmuted aspect of it.
Yeah,
It's not
it's shifted,
exactly the same energy.
right?
Maybe there's like a memory. Like sometimes I might feel like, oh, I can remember how painful something was in the past, but the pain is not there in the same way. But I have a
Yeah,
memory of what I felt.
but you can only see it that way if you're looking through the lens, the old lens of
Yes.
shame or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if you're looking through it through a lens of gratitude, then you won't even be able to see any of that.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's
Yeah.
you can use those things looking at your old experiences to notice that the only thing about the experience that really matters is what you've decided it was. And that gives you a lot of power because now you're like, I can decide to have enjoyed that experience, and the negativity around it fades away.
Yeah, totally. And just this sort of awareness that it's the feelings that we feel as a human that create all of the expansion. If we never felt anything, there wouldn't really be any expansion. It's our feelings process and the insight and wisdom afterwards that is enabling us to expand.
Yeah, yeah,
Like feelings are the vehicle through which we're expanding.
yeah, exactly.
Um, so it's great when we feel things.
It is.
Um, so maybe the last thing we can do is just dive down a little bit into how the heck do we feel our feelings?
Sure.
What are the best ways to really get down in there with our feelings? How do we feel our feelings?
I don't know how to. I don't know how to describe it for me.
Hmm.
I think it's a very unique thing for people.
Yeah.
Um, but like some people, I think need to sit in quiet and like
Yeah.
almost meditate,
Yeah.
and other people, like yourself, it's just constant. Like they're almost right at the surface. You just grab them, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like for me, I have to like go looking around,
A little bit for
yeah,
them.
trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And then because
Okay.
I don't have as much experience in the feelings because
Yeah.
I've been avoiding them my whole life, that I have trouble even identifying what is really happening with me. And
Yeah.
so I have a
Or
whole most of my feelings is just letting it come through and not
yeah.
trying so much to understand it, just letting it happen as
Can I
naturally as
ask you,
possible.
do you sometimes not even know what you're feeling? Like
Yeah.
something's coming up and you not even couldn't even maybe even name it?
Yeah. Yeah, I can
Uh,
usually just tell it's good or bad or positive or negative or
yeah.
yeah, but I'm detached from my feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
Um a little bit just as a what seems to be like a default just sort of orientation that I have that I established, but um I'm
I
getting more
think
and more like better and better and better at being able to talk about it, but also being able to understand what's going on. But
yeah.
it's a very
I
personal
think
journey, I think.
we talked about this in the last uh, video we did. I think part of what we're talking about is just getting more familiar with our system, with
Mhm.
our internal system, with our feelings, just with our feelings.
Yeah.
Like, because we're not taught this as kids. We're really taught
No.
just to look away from our feelings. So I think the first step in feeling our feelings is over time, just spending a bit of time and attention on this internal experience that we're having.
Yep.
And I know for me, I went for years, if I'd start to feel something uncomfortable, I'd reach for food, I'd call somebody, I'd go shopping, I do all these distractionary techniques. But if we can, oh, something uncomfortable, I'm something's happening, something's happening inside. If we can spend a little time by ourselves, even just in nature is a nice place to do it. And
Yep.
just spend a little time in that internal environment
Yeah.
without any huge goal. Just
That's what I would say.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just this practice of tuning into what is going on?
If
What's going on?
if possible, when the feelings arise, try to just excuse yourself from whatever you're in the middle of doing
Yes.
and just take 5 minutes, even like not even 5 minutes, a
Yes.
couple of minutes, and just
Yeah.
go sit somewhere nice or walk or whatever, and just
Yes.
try to let it come up and
Just yeah.
feel it.
Yeah,
And if you're
exactly.
hearing messages, try to hear those too. Um, and then after you feel it all, you'll usually feel a bit lighter and you'll start to reflect on it a little bit. And that's when you can have some nice insights too about your own behaviors and things and why things upset you, etc. Um, but I think the most important part is just putting a priority on realizing that I suffer because I'm refusing to feel my feelings.
Yes.
So if I would like to
Yes.
correct that and like to move into peace,
Yes.
then I need
Yes.
to put a priority on this because,
Yes.
yeah, it'd be nice to call Jane and chat for
Yes.
10 minutes about the the thing that she did with her family and whatever's going on.
Yes.
But really, it's probably better for me to sit for a minute and just feel this, and then I can call Jane after. Um,
Yes.
so,
I
and
love that. I
I do the
love
same thing though. Like it's very common, and it'll a lot of people will turn to drugs or alcohol as well in those areas,
yes.
like just
Yes.
numb, or anything though. But anything can substitute. Like you can just go, well, I got to clean, and then just start running around cleaning.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. Absolutely.
and I know
I,
that's one for that you've done.
I love to clean
Mine's
because
like going to sleep. That's one of the
yeah,
things.
I
That's one of the
noticed.
things I do. If I don't
Yeah.
feel great,
Yeah.
I think generally the best place for me to be is asleep because
Yeah.
otherwise I can really spin and like cycle
Yeah.
down, and it just seems to be easiest to just go to sleep.
Yes.
Now, if I had felt if I would just sit in the feelings and feel them a bit, the
Yep.
cycling probably wouldn't happen as much, right? Like that,
Exactly.
like it wouldn't be such a thing that I need to like, oh my god, I got to go to bed because I'm upset.
Exactly.
And it's funny to think about it now. Like I'm sad, I'm going to bed. Right?
Yeah.
That's sort of what the mind does. Like I don't like it, I'm going to bed, and I don't want to be awake anymore.
I don't want to feel these feelings, so I'm going to turn off my consciousness.
Yeah,
temporarily.
I'm just gonna die for a minute. Basically, it's that's sort of how I see it. I see sleep as like death and resurrection. That's
Yeah.
how I see
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go die for a couple hours and then I'll
I,
resurrect.
I mean, I will totally say that every time I kind of make a priority to feel my feelings, I have resistance. Every time. Every time there's a part of me that does not want to do it. Every time.
Yeah. I
Every
almost
time.
usually do it by accident, and then as it's happening, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, oh yeah, all right, I remember now. Like when I have a pyramid scheme that I do. I don't know if I've talked about it. Have I
I
talked
don't
about it on
think
the
you
stream?
have. I don't think so.
So I'm charging my energy field with pyramids. I have a jade pyramid that I'm using right now. And it's one day when I figured out the intricacies of it a bit and experimented a bit, I'll talk about it more on the channel. But um, there's a really cool Carillion photography thing that shows this spiral shooting light out of the top of a pyramid. Merlion or Carillion? Anyway, whatever. Uh, when I was when I was laying with the pyramid and charging myself, I realized that I just realized that I was really grumpy, and I just started to feel really grumpy. It was like the energy from the pyramid just like bubbled it all up. And so
Oh,
it's,
helped it come more to the
yeah,
surface.
I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think what happens is my awareness starts just expanding as I'm getting
Yeah.
energized by the pyramid.
Yeah.
So my awareness starts to expand, and then all the things that I've tried to tuck away just start to circle up or
Yeah.
spiral up to the top. And then,
Right.
so that's one of the reasons I don't talk about the pyramid too much, is because I don't want people doing it until I can give them the right directions. I don't think
Yeah.
it's safe. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a safe thing to do.
Yeah.
I've only told one person or two people how to do it. And I was very like worried about it the whole time. So, one day, hopefully I can do that. Actually, we talked about making our own pyramids even.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
yeah, so, you had talked about doing a practice at the end, right?
Yeah. 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 We can go into that
Did you
now.
still want to
And
do that?
yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to quickly say that, like, we're all in solidarity here around that. It's not easy to feel uncomfortable feelings.
Right.
And we can just support each other in that. And then also, you don't always have to do it alone either. If you do have someone who can really support you and you can cry with them, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't always have to do this work alone. You and
Yeah.
me have done that with each other. I'm sure many people do this, so it doesn't always have to be
If you
alone.
have
I think it's great to.
you have to
Oh, sorry,
have
go
the
ahead.
right person, though. I want to say you
Yes,
need someone
yes,
that's going to accept you and not going to sit and
yeah,
judge you and make you feel worse.
yes,
It's very
yes,
important that you have that safety.
yes.
If that
Super
safety isn't
important.
there, then it's purposeless.
Yeah,
In my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. Or if you have a trusted coach, therapist to do this with, but
Yeah, yeah,
I think what you said, I really just want to highlight, is just to make this a priority. I see feeling my feelings as honestly the most important thing I'm doing in this lifetime. It is, I feel it's the most important thing I can do
yeah,
for my own life and my relationships and everything. So it's just, it's a great thing to do. And as I said earlier, almost all the external shifts in my life that have been really amazing blessings, I believe, have come from me feeling my feelings. So I absolutely believe, if you want to do one thing to transform your life, just feel your feelings. There's nothing complicated. You don't have to do a million things. You don't have to take a million trainings. You don't have to follow a million gurus.
yep,
Your path is right in front of you. It's, oh, this feeling is right in front of me. I'm going to feel that, and I'm going to feel the next one.
yeah,
If that's the only thing you ever do, you will absolutely transform your life into the life of your dreams.
yeah. And if you can add to that a little bit of curiosity around the feeling too, like
Yeah.
that's how I find it easiest to move through the feelings, is just try to approach it in a curious way instead of any type of judgment of it. Just, I wonder what that's about, because it's mysterious, right? Like why do I
Absolutely.
suddenly feel this way? And there's
Absolutely.
so many things at work. So it's interesting, it's complicated, it's complex. So
Yeah.
um if you
And
could try
and
to
having
look at it
that
that way.
and having that same beautiful curiosity with your loved ones when they are
Yeah,
feeling things that might bring up uncomfortable feelings for you.
yep, yeah.
But just a little bit of a meta perspective.
And that's why doing it together is at first challenging, because you'll remember with our initial, when we first started having these types of like different clashes of our emotions, um,
Yes.
we're learning how to sit in acceptance of the other while some of the things they're saying hurt, right? They
Yes.
don't
Oh my
feel
gosh.
good, and so we have to
Yes.
sit there and
Yes.
be open to them. And so
Yes.
it's like you usually have to build that capacity with
That
people.
that is like amazing mastery to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
To
You know,
hold that space and not sort of crumble yourself if
yeah.
someone's saying something that feels really painful to you.
And it's the hardest with people you care the most about as well.
Yes.
So like, you know, you start to feel hesitant to even express because you can
Yes.
tell that what you're saying is upsetting them as well. So like,
Yes.
there's all these different
Yes.
layers and nuances to it. I do think that if you can get to a place where both can be accepting and like sit in their emotions and not judge each other,
Yes.
that's probably the best or will be the most full learning that both of you can have from the experience.
And
That
I
seems to be
think
the way.
I think that is in some ways to me one of the highest expressions of love towards another.
Yeah,
Not,
agreed.
not only just listening and accepting them and accepting their feelings, but if we can accept feelings they have that may be painful for us too,
Yeah.
but to still be able to be in that orientation of love towards them. It's very masterful.
Jamie said she's reading a book on Hawaiian shamanism that touches on pyramid charging. Jamie, if you don't mind putting the title of the book in the chat, I'll have a look at it. I'm curious if they're doing something similar to what I'm doing. Uh, it's most likely it's a little different, but I'm curious anyways, just to see how other cultures or other teachings work with pyramids. So yeah, I'd appreciate that if you know the title of the book, of course, or if you want to find it, message me later. That's fine too. Either way.
Um, so what do you think? I could do this in a separate video and upload it
I was
today
gonna say that because
because it seems a little
we're
long.
at an
Yeah.
hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
And so what I was gonna say is what I can do with you is actually you could probably do it on your own now
Yeah.
with the editing and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we
I'll today or tomorrow upload a video of a deep feelings practice that is not too long, but
yeah.
um a way a tool to go into some of your deeper feelings
I
and
think you should still do it live as well. Like not live stream, but recorded, like you delivering it. Maybe do one of the
yes.
guided meditations, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we could do it now, but I think the video is pretty long already. But
Yeah. I think I'll do it separately.
yeah.
Um all right. Thank you to everyone who's on with us right now and to everyone who's listening to this later. And I don't know, I just want to say so much love to all of us because feeling our feelings can be so uncomfortable. So I just want to say, take it as a win. Take it as a huge success anytime you go into an uncomfortable feeling. Just really love on yourself, pat yourself on the back. I personally think, as a psychotherapist, it's truly one of the most courageous things we can ever do in our lifetime is to feel our uncomfortable feelings. To me, there's nothing more challenging and more honorable.
Yeah, and it's what will lead to enlightenment.
It is what will lead to enlightenment and
So
what will lead to everything you really want in your life
yeah.
is through feeling your feelings. Yeah.
All right.
It's
Thanks everybody. I
okay.
wanted to
So
say
much
thank
fun.
you to Jamie as well. She wrote the book down. It's called Urban Shama by Serge Kahili King. I think, pardon my pronunciation if I got that wrong, but just in case viewers were wondering, that's what it's called for the pyramids by the Hawaiian shamans. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jamie, and everyone for the interesting conversation. We got into some topics that totally were unexpected, but it was fun. So thank you, everyone. Love all your
So
faces.
much love to everyone.